This is how Jay Smithweck arrives to the Jeff Stearns podcast.
Your desk, such as your laptop, out of the way?
I want to not see
the yellow paper.
Yeah.
So just nudge it up. And nudge is right there. Stop. Now come down a little. Come down a little more. A little more because it bounced back up.
Too much.
All right, just a hair. Go up. Perfect. You got to bang on doors and you got to have your teeth kicked in. And you got to do it 10 times in a day.
And it was a buy here, pay here lot. Everybody rides and rolls in Bentley.
I actually go with Jeff Stearns. We're going to go see Grant Cardone. You know, a salesman, we're bored. Here comes another rah-rah, blah, blah, blah. In the front row, we have to sit. And there's a little fold card piece of paper. And they say, put your first and last name on it.
And I just wrote it down, and this is upside down. So.
Right. So I got to sit next to Jeff. He's in the front row. I write my name. I look over to him and he writes, and I'm not kidding.
And when you said to me, would you pay $500 a month
For me to shoot your photos.
and for you to have all of your inventory on the internet?
So they can see it instantly.
So if Jay can put all my cars on the website, I'll still have to FedEx some because not everyone has internet yet.
Now we're shooting 600 stores. The whole room rides on a track. And you're able to push the room like a sliding glass door to control all the lighting and reflection on your car.
I remember one time somebody traded in a Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible with a little damage around the headlight, drove into her garage door or something. And I remember they had to get the guy out of retirement that made the headlamp bezel.
I thought because that thing had 345 horsepower.
You talked about it so much.
I really did.
And I didn't see it.
Never owned one.
I've never been a nutcase.
And I love the 900 Saab turbos. I think cars are the shit. I think it's the greatest industry to work in. This year, during COVID, and since the January of last year, I've traveled 6.5 times around the earth and love every minute of it. Great whites. They drop a cage off the back of the boat.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
So I'm sitting here with Jay Smithwick, my good friend since 1993. He comes in, Jay, you're going to have to get me a photo. He comes in this bolt straight, good-looking bastard with built-in genetic black eyeliner, pure Air Force, like a pure soldier, a movie star.
Had to look that way because I was totally corrupt. So I had to have that suit of armor. I left the Air Force, and a very good friend of mine in Dallas, a GM at a car store, W.O. Bankston, Dallas, Texas. He said, come to work for me, you get a car. I was like, what? So I went to work, fell in love with the car business, always like building value to build the high gross. The story sells. Price doesn't sell, story sells. Fell in love with it, engaging with people and really just having fun and just being authentic. When I got a divorce and I moved to Florida and walked into Carlisle, Lincoln Mercury, just a great bunch of guys. Do you ever think about like how many people really just moved on to be like crazy people into the auto industry?
Some big talent came out of there.
Really? David Long, you, Car Chat, me, 360 Booth.
So I remember you coming into the store one day into work and telling me that you had a customer get in the trunk of a car.
Yes. We had bets out on the point on who could do the best walk around. And I said, I'll bet you I can get somebody to get in the trunk of a Lincoln Town Car.
So,
you know,
if you never sold cars,
right.
So out on the point is where the salesmen hang out waiting for customers to come in, made a bet that during a walk around presentation, this is showing a car that Jay could
value and features and benefits. And you have Lincoln Town Cars like 91 or 93, 94. So you could literally put 6 bodies in that thing. I had a customer literally stand inside that trunk.
And you were saying, look at this cubic feet or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get on in there and all your other buddies are watching.
And because I played basketball, I would always bet $100 I can jump wheel to wheel without touching it in slacks in 9 steps. So I always won that bet.
I remember one time, I don't remember the struggle that you and I were having. I don't remember what it was, but I remember that it was the first time I ever thought of calling somebody's wife
Yes.
to help me manage.
Right. Manage.
Do you remember this?
Great word. I do remember it.
And, your wife is still, Rena,
Oh, 27 years.
still your kryptonite.
Bullets.
Still your
Bullets.
kryptonite. So I thought, okay, I know how this guy loves his wife. I didn't know what I couldn't get you to do. I don't know if it was show up on time. I don't know if it was
probably
be nice to a
show up.
customer. I don't know what it was.
Show up. I would go dark and ratted me out.
So managers out there, if you are having a problem with your staff, call and tell on them.
But we got through it, and then what? AutoNation moves in, and puts a
AutoNation-
kibosh on everything.
AutoNation moved in, and Carlisle Lincoln Mercury was one of the first AutoNation acquisitions. I left a few months before that happened. I didn't know it was going to happen. I'd gotten an offer for a couple of positions higher to general sales manager at the local Cadillac Land Rover store, and went to our owner, Dan Carlisle, who, as you know, is like everyone's favorite uncle or
Right.
sweetheart of a guy, and asked him. I wasn't trying to get more money out of him or get a promotion out of him. I told him I got the offer, asked him if I should take it. If he said, listen, we're buying a store in 3 months and I'm going to want to put you in it, then that would have been the end of it.
Right.
But if he said, no, we don't really, I knew he'd be straight with me. And he said, why don't you take that job? And then I didn't know anything. And a few months later, they sold AutoNation.
No.
And that buy sell took probably a year and a half. So a lot of people, he knew, of course. So a lot of people said to me, man, your timing, how did you know? And I didn't know anything, of course.
Right.
So you were there when AutoNation took over?
It was a foggy stage of the
of your
life period, but I did jump around. I went to a couple other stores and then finally woke up out of the ether.
Here's why I wanted to have you on. Here's why Jay Smithweck is on the Jeff Stearns podcast. I mean, of course, you're a car guy. We saw what you pulled up in. I know there's a lot of people that would love to have the success that you have and know how you got there. So let's go back. I'm assuming that you weren't necessarily an A student.
Always craved. I was watching these crazy commercials. I cannot remember the guy. When you had invited me on here, I was trying to remember his name. Guy, white hair. He was on TV in 79, 80, 81, selling real estate with no money down.
Oh.
And I would watch his infomercials over and over and over again. And not to learn that, but just business and how the creativity worked. And my 80s bled into my 90s, which didn't help. But to be successful, you got to undo the suit of armor, and you got to be real with yourself, and you got to make sure that your shit is together before you do anything else.
So I don't remember who left the dealership that we were together at. I don't know who left first.
Right.
I don't remember if you left before I did, but I do remember running this Cadillac Land Rover store.
Yes.
You know what? You did
1998.
No, that would have been okay. So I think you left first because I was still at our store together, Carlisle Lincoln Mercury, when you hit me with Bart. I could picture being in that building looking
Bart
at that
on.
brochure.
Bart is on. Yeah, I was trying to get out of the car business because it was just beating me up, and I still was having issues personally with myself. Answered an ad, went to a company that had the big brick cell phone wired to cars or RVs, and that if you pushed a button, it called rural metro, and it had all your medical history. And I thought it was really cool. It was the OnStar before OnStar. I did that for about a year. Brought it into Lazy Days, brought it into the RV industry, traveled in an RV, went to these shows. I was like 28, 29.
Okay, so one of your first customers or only customers was the largest RV dealer in the nation at the time, or close to?
No,
Okay.
in the world.
Okay.
Lazy Days RV is the beast.
How did you get in there? Like, for those of us trying to learn a success point, you're a young guy, you're out pushing this thing, you get into this largest RV dealer in the world. Like, what did you do? Knock or know somebody?
So do you ever have those people knock on your door and you go, this guy's amazing, but he's peddling some liquid that cleans grease? You know, those guys. You got to bang on doors, and you got to have your teeth kicked in, and you got to do it 10 times in a day, not twice and quit. You got to do it for months on end. I went into Lazy Days, not afraid to anything. Don't be afraid of anything. Overcome your fears. What are they going to say? No. But I went in there. They got the concept. They actually gave us retail space to put a desk there, all branded up, and sell it to RV customers inside Lazy Days.
Okay, so I know Jay is a very humble guy, and that's one of the things I love about him. But from a success seminar standpoint of this podcast, Jay's quite successful. You've got how many houses?
Not important.
Okay.
But I do believe that as long as you're not bankrupting or hurting your family, we put our money into real estate to live our lives. So if one of us were to become ill, we could be sucking our last breath with zero regrets in life.
Got it. So we don't need to talk about how many houses, but for those that don't know, look, if you're a 360 booth customer, you don't want to hear how many houses.
I don't know. I have a photo business I've had for 23 years. So save, only spend 30% of your income. We're the classic house broke people. We just love a good looking home, visit. So Newport, Rhode Island, Dallas, Texas, and Tampa.
That's it. It's not that big a deal. And spends a little bit of time in Laguna.
Any chance you get to go to Laguna, go.
So you start with this BART, and you've got this booth.
Oh, no, you forgot surf bike.
I don't even remember surf bike.
So there was an ad in a newspaper about a marketing representative. And because I've surfed, I gravitated to this 12-foot long PVC board with a bike seat and a bike pedal. And I marketed it I think I took the job for $500 a week, and I drove around Florida and inevitably realized that to put a bike that rode on the water, you don't do it in Florida. Why? 10 months of outdoor activity, alligators, and fresh water with lily pads that get tangled in the prop just didn't work. So I moved on from that. They were talking about the internet in 97. When I was in the Air Force, they had a green IBM screen. I was like, this internet thing's never going to work. And then I saw JavaScript and I was like blown away. So I started a lot photo service. Now we're 1998 and I walk in your dealership and you turn the nothing Bentley store rolls into number 5.
We bought the franchise. It was the strangest thing. It was a buy here, pay here. It was Bennett Auto Sales. Garrett Lincoln Mercury was the Rolls and Bentley dealer a million years ago. An ex-employee of theirs that wanted to show that he made it bought the Rolls and Bentley from them. I didn't remember his first name. I do know it was Bennett. And it was a buy here, pay here lot. Everybody rides and Rolls and Bentley. So when my dealer went to buy that, and by the way, I was against it. I was completely against it because I'd only been in the store a few years and I was working on it a piece at a time. So I at first took Cadillac that was doing somewhere between 25 and 50 new a month, up to 80 a month consistently, and then took used that was doing 50 or 60, up to about 80 a month, and then Land Rover that was doing like 9,
right,
up to the mid 30s. And when they wanted to buy Rolls and Bentley, and what did I know from etched glass or flower vases on the B pillar or whatever, I wasn't interested in learning. I was just interested in getting this volume going. But nonetheless, my owner bought.
And there was no volume back then in the late 90s for Bentley or Rolls.
No
true volume until that GT hit.
Correct. So when we bought it from Bennett, they'd sold 1 car in 3 years, according to the factory. I don't know if that's factual, but maybe it was 2. Then when we took it over, I had very, very good Cadillac and Land Rover salespeople. So when they would bump into a customer interested in one of these cars, they were good enough, even though they didn't know the product very well, to serve the customer and sell them one. We were selling about 15 cars a year at that point. My wife becomes pregnant with my first son, or just had him, I don't remember. And I went to my owner and I said, I always said that when I had kids, I didn't want to live at the dealership. So let's hire another manager. And as the general sales manager, let's pull me out of the rotation. I don't need to schedule myself for nights. He says, great, you could take this Rolls and Bentley thing. And I said, okay, let's try that. So we ended up taking it to 100 cars the first year.
Crazy.
And it wasn't just me. I ended up getting a great team. But by the end, we were doing about 300 cars a year.
Now understand for the audience. At Carlisle Lincoln Mercury, 1994, we attend a Grant Cardone motivational car knowledge overcome conference with 200 salespeople in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, and I actually forgot that.
I actually go with Jeff Stearns. We're going to go see Grant Cardone. A salesman, we're bored. Here comes another rah-rah, blah, blah, blah. In the front row, we have to sit. And there's a little fold card piece of paper, and they say put your first and last name on it.
And I just wrote it down, and this is upside down. So
Right. So I got to sit next to Jeff. He's in the front row. I write my name. I look over to him, and he writes, and I'm not kidding, Sales God. Sales God. That wasn't even rehearsed, and we just know that story. And listen, I
was gonna see if our
just want to
stories
get
match.
through this. I don't want to be the center of activity. And Grant hits the stage, and come on, anybody hits the stage, and somebody's cocky enough to sit front row and put Sales God. What a story! It was tit for tat, and unfortunately, sorry, Grant, Jeff beat your ass.
on only one topic that we argued about. Obviously, I'm not the one with the private jets and the 10,000 square foot condo.
Kudos, Grant.
So
you killing it.
Grant got it done.
Charisma could only bring a Bentley store to 100 cars in a year from zero.
Well, we weren't the largest in the nation, but I was really proud. And we had the cars out back in the service drive just to keep them in the shade. So we're in the storeroom in the upstairs of the Cadillac building.
Selling roses.
We were working on a wallpaper plastic table. This is like walking uphill both ways to school, like your dad talking. So for salespeople out there, not necessarily car salespeople, I want to let you know that there really doesn't need to be an excuse.
You don't need a $20 million dealership. You don't need a $1,000 desk. You don't need a blowpunk pen and a suit, even though they were in suits. It was a table in a storage facility selling Bentleys and Rolls.
It was all telephone because we were in an area, Clearwater, Florida, where nobody drove them.
Right.
So now we're trying to compete with the areas in Florida where people do drive them, like
Miami.
Yeah, Miami, Palm Beach, Lauderdale.
Right.
But we're competing with other territories like New York, Connecticut, Detroit, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Beverly Hills.
Real cities.
Yeah, right.
Real money.
And Palm Springs. And in the end, we ended up being number one in certified pre-owned Rolls and Bentley in the nation. We ended up being number one in Rolls-Royce east of the Mississippi. So I'm sure people in California or Vegas or Arizona or someone beat us. We were number one or tied for number one customer satisfaction for a number of years with a Houston dealer. Awesome guy there. And then when the Bentley Continental GT came out, we had the second largest waiting list on the car after Palm Springs, and people converting from a reservation to a real 20 grand deposit. I'm really ordering the car. We had the highest conversion to really getting a car. So for an area that nobody drove these cars.
Modesty, once again, you couldn't have pulled that off without the culture of Carlisle and all that skills bringing it to fruition there at that store, in a store.
Well, it was just like coming from this dealer named Carlisle Lincoln Mercury that was always 1, 2, or 3 largest volume in the nation for Lincoln Mercury. It was really just working at a super high volume pizza place.
Correct.
And coming in and being able to show the next place how to make a whole bunch of pizzas.
Make a custom pizza.
But we were able to do it with exotic cars too.
Now let's fast forward.
Okay.
I start AutoExact data photo collection. Back then, 98, there was no database. So you handwrit Ford F-150 XLT. We took photos of it. There was really nowhere to put it. I was the third customer to Auto Bytel. 98, 99, I walk in and see Jeff. He's now got a decent office. I think there's a Bentley or two on the showroom.
There was definitely exotic cars.
There was talk of private planes, so things have taken off for him. I'm shorts and just grinding, taking photos of cars. And I walk into his office. I said, Jeff, you need to embrace this internet. He goes, no, we take photos. And he pulls out stacks of Polaroids. And he goes, no, I don't need photos. We just send 20, 30 Polaroids in an envelope.
Every time a car came in,
right,
I take it under the tree so there wasn't glare on the grass, take a few pictures, run it to the drugstore at the corner and get 5 developed. So when I get phone calls about them, we could FedEx. And when you said to me, would you pay $500 a month
for me to shoot your photos
and for you to have all of your inventory on the internet
so they can see it instantly?
And I'm thinking, well, geez, we're only a few years from having a website and barely anyone even knows we have we're like 2 old people. I remember before telephone. And I thought, okay, I'm spending a few hundred a month at the drugstore developing pictures, and I'm spending a couple hundred a month on FedEx sending them to people.
Time.
So if Jay can put all my cars on the website, I'll still have to FedEx some because not everyone has internet yet. And you
Right.
can't-
And I gave you a link with all your inventory. You just email the link to it and let them look at the car.
That's right. He showed me, you can actually send a picture of a car through email if they have email.
Right.
And I thought to myself, well, the only cars we're taking pictures of are the exotic, used Rolls, Bentley, Ferrari, Lambo, whatever. But we put the entire Cadillac inventory on, which we weren't taking pictures of because people weren't calling us from out of the area on a used Cadillac. And I thought, all right, $500 is a lot of money. Let's do it.
Right.
So Jay's very, very successful, owns a company called AutoExact, and the tagline was fine. And this is
Right. I thought I was going to be like an Auto Trader type site.
well, except there was no Auto.
There was no Auto Trader.
So they copied you. So your tagline
not
was
necessarily.
find the exact car you're looking for.
Right. ADP had a site, and there was like 150,000 cars and no actual photos. So that's how I got the idea of taking photos.
So you were really a pioneer you weren't like another guy taking photos. You were the only one I'd heard of, and probably.
I think Maroney might have been out there.
But did you know of anyone else doing it?
No.
So you weren't copying anyone?
No. There was no databases. I had to build it. And, now we're shooting 600 stores, 70 employees. Marcus Tarmin has been with me 20 years. Crazy.
So you're shooting pictures for 600 or 700 stores now?
Yeah. Texas and Florida.
Well, you deserve all the houses. So if you're a 360 booth customer, it's got nothing to do with you. I remember, you and I did a little business venture together with another friend of ours, and we got recognized at NADA for one of the niftiest.
Correct. And we were years ahead of our time, and that was so sad.
Recognized at Automotive News.
Yes.
There was an article, that's right. But we were at NADA, and while we were working together.
Dealer mouth. Okay.
Do we have to talk about the failed businesses?
Hey, if you ain't throwing shit up against a wall, you ain't trying.
That's right. So while we were spending a lot of time at your home office working on the software and the idea, you kept bringing up this idea of van or something pulling up with an inflatable, like bounce house thing that would pop out of it.
Right.
And give you a nice spot to take pictures of cars because you were frustrated.
So I could control lighting because shooting outside, inevitably, I thought somebody had to do it.
You were frustrated taking pictures of dealers' inventory.
Yeah, Florida, it rains every day. And then up north in Chicago, Detroit, it'll rain and be crappy for 3 weeks. So you can't, if the internet was going to work for the car business, you had to shoot 24/7. So I thought someone had to do it, and why not be me? So shed some tears, spent some money, shed some more tears, frustration, finally had a breakthrough. And I come up with the design for 360 booth.
So
7 years ago.
360 booth. Well, so this is an environment.
Correct. The concept is with zero motors because turntables or electrics, let's be honest, electronics fail. The whole room rides on a track, and you're able to push the room like a sliding glass door to control all the lighting and reflection on your car. No software needed, although we do pitch some software. You don't need it with my studio. It's a one-off. I priced it for market share rather than, I guess, truly high gross. I wanted to capitalize, and so far it's worked. I kept it simple. We got over 805 countries, 16 in New Zealand, 10 in Australia, Guam, Hawaii, 50 or so in Canada.
How long have you been selling these?
6 years.
And he's got 800 of them built.
800.
That's truly a success story. And you've had a couple copies or attempted.
Oh, yeah.
And you've rescued some dealers that tried the other ones.
So some of my competitors, I have probably 35, 40 of them inside their spaces that have failed. Because what they're trying to do is to build a room and do the traditional photo booth, which, let's be honest, the car business doesn't have access to highly skilled photographers. And they set those rooms up for a highly skilled photographer. I tried to dummy it up with my experience on the lot photography side. I need people that just has this much more give a shit, and we can give them an income and visit the dealers 5 days a week. But, I'm curious, back in the day when you were shooting Polaroids, since most likely there's car guys looking at, what was your favorite car in 1998?
Gosh.
Oh, let's go 2000. Around Bentley time. You had to have had a favorite car.
Jay, I get asked that a lot what was my favorite car, that came in stock.
Or you would want to own, even though you've never really owned the supercar, right?
No, and I also had the ability to drive one as a company car. And some
Right.
people would ask, why aren't you driving a Bentley or a Lotus or something? I was always so worried about it because I remember one time somebody traded in a Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible with a little damage around the headlight, drove into her garage door or something. And I remember they had to get the guy out of retirement that made the headlamp bezel,
Right.
and it sat behind our body shop for 10 months while we were waiting for a part. So I was so paranoid to drive that even though it could be insured and repaired, and I didn't want to wait 10 months to fix anything. And we would need to disclose that the thing was in an accident. And even if it's flawless work, that would drop at another $10,000 or $20,000.
But let's be honest, both of us, it's not in our DNA to have that ego where we needed to drive that greater than great car. Like, I love the new 12-cylinder Silver Spur Bentley, but I couldn't, with a clear conscience, sit in one and drive one and own it. It's just not me. I'm in t-shirts and jeans and a hat. Now, I do have a dream car, and it's kind of a little downplayed of a car because, a GT3 RS is most people perceive just as a 911 with some punk wing on the back of it. And most don't know about it except for some Porsche guys. So it does kind of fly under the radar, but your ego really didn't allow you to feel comfortable driving these cars. No? Yes?
When I liked driving the car is if I thought I'd bump into somebody that might want it.
Just for financial gain.
Or for my kids or a neighborhood kid to take a ride in it.
But I run across a lot of the
Or my
guys
dad.
that were back in your position that if they don't drive the latest and greatest trade-in, they're crippled. They will never drive the less than Ford. And I just think it's...
No, I would only drive Cadillacs.
Right.
At the time. But my favorite car at the time was, you know what? I didn't have it. So, the car I really wanted at the time was a Ferrari F40.
So you went all in. Now, don't you wish you had kept something or had access to get that back then?
Of course.
What's those things worth now?
Well, that's over $1 million. I don't know.
Right. Over $1 million.
Yeah, for sure.
And they didn't stick or nowhere near that.
We'll put on the screen how much a Ferrari F40 is worth right now. And I haven't dealt in one, so I'm not cognizant of the value, but I can tell you at the time, I thought, boy, wouldn't it be nice to have one of those? But gosh, they're in the $400,000 range.
Right.
But like the cars that we took in that I really liked, I loved I think so. It must have leaned toward Ferrari. So I think I really love Testarossa.
I think it's all Miami Vice. I think in the 80s started the Testarossa for everybody.
Yep, and I love the Berliner Boxer Ferrari also.
Yes,
and then
a great touring car.
Yep, and then a lot of guys would make fun of me because they're cheap and they don't bring a lot of money. Well, maybe now they're worth a lot too. But a Mondial Ferrari, the back seat, the convertible with the back seat.
Right.
I thought they looked beautiful. They were never very expensive.
Which I love the FF, which looks like the golfer's station wagon Ferrari.
Right.
Because of the long wheelbase and the touring end, it's a 12-cylinder. But once again, that's a car that you would love to own, but I wouldn't feel comfortable driving the perception of the Ferrari and the $500,000 car, even though it's not, but it's just not my DNA.
So you've been AutoExact shooting these photos now for 20 years.
23 years past June.
Gosh. And
coming up on my 24th.
And I get to say it. And when I was customer 001.
You were. In fact, we still shoot Demet's cars 23 and a half years later.
Do you still shoot every day?
Every day. Never changed that. It made no sense that when competition started coming in, they would come 1 or 2 days and focus on the sticker. I knew coming from the car business that there was plenty of salesmen sitting on their hands that for someone to take 15 minutes to put a sticker on it would be fine. So we give them that ability. But photographers should come 5 days a week. You're in business 6 days, 7 days a week here in Florida. So we should be shooting cars.
So backing up again. So military.
Yes.
Were you the model soldier? Were you in trouble? Were you rebellious? Were you?
So in retrospect, after, a heavy education in addiction and being sober now 27 years, can I say that I joined the Air Force to get out? The typical addict runs from their problems. I think if my education's taught me anything, I probably went in that direction to get some structure, thinking I would just fly into the radar. The first night I get there, which I partied 3 days straight before basic training. Should have been thrown in jail if I had gotten a blood test. But the night we get off the bus, I'm dorm chief. Now it goes dorm chief, 4 or 5 squad leaders, and the rest of the 70 people in that basic training camp. And now I'm number one responsibility for everybody, and I'm just not digging this. But I rose to the occasion, got through it. Air Force, Crew Chief 130s, did Desert Storm.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, came out, still had a little issue going on, met an incredible woman, and wanted her moral compass. I didn't know I was lacking.
Okay.
It just eats away at you ever so often. So just wanted that moral compass. So I walked in and said, okay, I'm done. Well, no, back up again. I was given a referral from you for a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And I sat with him a couple of days, and he goes, Jay, you're fine. You just need to stop drinking and drugging. Right. I mean, he says, you're fine. We don't need to talk anymore. So, then I started to realize, but I'm on track. I love life. I don't like to have a cloudy judgment anymore. I like to feel my pains, my frustrations, I just like to feel. And I like the good side of feeling too.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sober also about 25 years. I'd have to look up the exact date.
Right. Me too.
I agree that, so the reason that we use those of us addicts is we're not really looking for a feeling. We're usually avoiding
Correct.
some feeling. And then we later learn that the best way to the other side of the problem is not around it, not under it, but just you got to go right through it.
Right.
And the beautiful thing about getting everything is you get everything. So I love what you just said about feeling the bad stuff, because it really does. Well, first of all, when I went sober, and then there, one of the steps of sobriety is you got to make your list of people that you owe an amends to.
I never got that call, by the way.
And then I've been waiting myself. Okay.
Go ahead.
So you always know if friendship's on the rocks when there's scorekeeping. So, but you make your list of amends of people you owe an amends to, and you go make your amends. And for me,
by the way, as a dyslexic, I danced around all of them, but I'm still sober.
And congrats, no matter what. And what I found is when you said I want to feel everything, is once I went through some of my processes of sobriety, once something I did wrong to somebody, it would be such a pebble in my shoe.
God. Unbelievable.
Right?
Unbelievable.
I have to go clean immediately. Like I can't have, if I have.
But in the same respect, when you run into someone that is not necessarily an addict or a drinker of some sort, but just like corrupt, just full of garbage, I tend to stay away because I know the hurt will come. So I'd rather push away.
Well, there's something to be said about choosing who you surround yourself with.
And now the car business talk went into therapy session, but I'm good with it.
How are you going to be with me and,
right.
and not get into therapy? Right? Okay. This is what happened in the military. You meet a wonderful woman whose moral compass you want.
Right. I got it. So it was a rough patch, 16 months or so, but just good. Just got it. And now probably have taken the addiction into work, focusing on breathing techniques and, focusing on lowering stress, I guess. And I was diagnosed with an aneurysm. So it could be my last run or sprint to the gate. All joking, purely a joke. But don't know how I got it. Could have been hereditary. But just being authentic. I do videos. I try to keep them under a minute and be authentic as possible and truly only do a video for something to say. For everybody out there on LinkedIn that's just talking, stop. Don't do the 1.5-minute intro. We don't care. you're there to give us something, and it's not your intro and who you've met.
So we're sharing a camera and we're sharing a microphone. As you can see, we were trying to figure
During
out
COVID, not that we don't believe that there is COVID and we believe it's dangerous. He already has immune to it. I've done 140 flights since May. I'm very hands-washy and masked, but we are safe as family. That's
right. And no, COVID's a real thing. And luckily, I'm in the 99.9% survivor group.
Right.
After I got it.
99.08%.
Okay.
We won't get into that.
But no offense to anyone that's
Absolutely
lost anyone. I mean,
it's brutal.
My God. Yeah. No doubt about it. So we're trying to figure out how to do this. Anyone that's watched or listened to my other shows have all gone through recorded.
Been through legends.
Through recorded with the real legends.
Friendship.
Have been through recorded Zoom. So what we were going to do in this office was two Zooms. A Zoom from two spots inside the office. And we were going to work with this additional microphone borrowed from my son, Max. It turns out that it's the kind of microphone that picks up everything in the room.
So we hope this is sounding well, because we're all prepared for
it. Was going to be this. And then Jay on the other. So now we decided to stand or perform next to each other for you guys. But when we were sitting on the couch over there in my office, not the casting couch, Jay says, we need to limit these things. When I do it, it's about a minute. And when I listen, it can only be a minute. When I listen to these guys doing
two different audiences, I can't stand and I can't listen for a podcast for an hour. Two different audiences. I have a very good friend and employee that listens to Rogan for hours. I can't do it. But I did want to limit it to an hour, but I would love to come back if, I can fit into your car legends thing one day. Maybe I'll be a legend. I'm a legend in my own mind. What the hell?
We can limit it to an hour. Do you have any idea how long we've been on?
Not a clue.
No,
it's been a blast.
No, me neither.
What did we miss?
So here we are. Jay Smithweck. I want to just talk to you about cars for a minute, and we can have another because I know your attention span. I know the attention span. Already 1 foot out the door. Already excusing himself in the middle of the show on the air.
I'm good.
That's my boy. So you pulled up in a beautiful GT3.
Correct.
I do remember a Hummer H1.
Yes. H2s came out, and I was surfing pretty regularly at the time. And this is 2006. And I was driving from Tampa to Cocoa Beach and chasing tropical storms and hurricanes before they hit and then after they left. And I convinced my wife that I needed a surfing safari vehicle. And I dreamt one up, and I found that Reeves Imports, great people, have had a H1. It had a hand-sprayed Sedona, Arizona landscape on it, but it was brown. It had all the everything you wanted in a convertible H1. It was a show car. It had 4,000 miles. It was, or 2,000 miles when I bought it. $37,000.
What are those worth now?
Over 100.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to my wife. Said, can you imagine when I kept that thing? But I think I kept it 5 years. Put 5,000 miles on it. Was driving back and forth to Cocoa. And a lot of fun in that thing. A lot of fun. So I guess that was, and I let it go. I actually sold it for what I bought it for 5 years later. So that was a win. I think if you can sell something and get your money back in the car business, that's a win.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a profit. 20 years into building a business, when I guess I could have hawked and got the supercar or whatever dream car you wanted, I was just really focused on if you had the ability to do that type of car, you should pay cash for it, or just don't be a wannabe. I wanted a GT. What was the stripped down GT that was just a racing car? The GTR? GT?
Well, GT Speed?
GT Speed, 2010. I wanted it bad. Put my wife in it once, and she goes, it was like a NASCAR experience. I mean, it's just brilliant for someone that likes to drive cars. It was brilliant. She wanted no part of it. And it was that Bentley moniker, so it didn't feel good. And then I had a dream of the Maserati convertible. None of them came to fruition, but I always kept that carrot out there for me as I was just grinding. And then a couple of years ago, I'm driving in DC. I travel 5 days a week, visiting stores. And this orange thing just flies by me. And it's a GT, it's a 911. I was, what the hell's that wing? Now, I can't believe that I'm in the car business and never heard of a GT3 RS.
Right.
And I see this wing go by and I catch it up in traffic and it's got these vents over the front wheel. And I said, boy, that's crazy. Who customized that 911? So I saw the badge on the back and it said GT3 RS, and I researched it, and I fell in love. I started watching all the race car drivers talk about the track monster, and it's got ESP and it thinks for you on the road, and it's just a perfect ultimate driving car. And I thought, boy, these guys really got to get a hobby. But I started looking at them, and this car's unfortunately special for me because the day I go to the dealership, I think it's lava orange, which is a factory color. And the day it was at one of my stores I'm installing a studio at, the day I'm walking the space to measure the space for the studio, I get a call from my brother. He's frantic. They found my mom on the floor. So compose myself, turn around, end the meeting, sit in my car, and the world's just spinning. You don't know what's going on. You've unfortunately experienced it. What do I do now? Do I go see this car?
Right.
I'm in New York. I don't know what to do. I call my wife and I said, honey, I'm just going to go see this car. It's almost like the Seinfeld episode where Elaine gets a phone call, her friend's been stabbed, and she runs back into the theater to get the juju beads.
Right.
And he goes, where did you get the juju beads? Before or after you got the call? You know what I mean?
Right.
But
That's a great example.
I was numb. So I went in, and it turned out to be a paint to sample color from Porsche called Gulf Orange. Now, the reason that color is significant and how did it happen that I see it on my mother's death is sophomore high school, Chicago, Illinois. My dad drives by a Chevy store, and there's an orange Corvette Stingray sitting there, and he buys it, and I'm blown away. I remember running across this room, Mom, we got a Corvette. I was crazy about it. And it's the same damn color. Long story short, I bought that car. I'm madly in love with it. I turned 16 every time I get behind the wheel, and strongly suggest that if anyone has dreams, live them without bankrupting your family. You need to live.
Well, and cars have a great way of doing that. I mean, you say you get behind the wheel of that car, you're 16 every time, reminds you of your dad's vet.
Yeah.
Most of the cars I've chased have been cars that I grew up in that my dad had.
Right. Some represented back here.
Yes.
So, car business is always, or cars in general. I remember my parents had met my stepfather some 40 years. When he moved in, he had this book of Corvettes. And when you flip through it, it was all the prototypes and things like this. And there was this Mako Shark Corvette that kind of like, oh my God. So, and now I'm talking like 4th, 5th grade.
Right.
And I attend Cars and Coffee up in Newport, Rhode Island in the summer. And I saw a Mako Corvette. And just crazy. So my father was an influence in the cars.
Was this the car with the exposed headers coming out of this?
No, it just had this really exaggerated body kit on it. Lo and behold, I got an RS, which is all exaggerated there. So I definitely like the cars that are exaggerated more so for a track rather than luxury, because that GT3 is a rough ride. You don't buy that car for it.
I remember when the GT3 came out. Of course, you weren't aware of it. You discovered it later.
Know.
But when you bought them new, they came with driving school.
Correct. In fact, when I picked up this, even though it was a certified car, they deliver it in LA at the track or Atlanta. In this case, it would have been Atlanta. But I was like a kid in a candy store. No, get it to my house.
Right.
I should have took the track. I should have learned something in the track. I can't wait to go and be more of a technical driver rather than just a passionate loon.
Right.
Because I would love to learn the particulars and the techniques. But just crazy.
Well, in 911, that's a whole different type of technical driving anyway.
Yeah. With the RS, all 4 wheels turn. So, I mean, you want to do a U-turn, you just break everybody's neck and just pull it. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Now, the car I heard you talk most about
absolutely
was the Infiniti Q.
Q45. I thought because that thing had 345 horsepower. Now we're going back to 90 93, 92.
White leather or something.
Oh, it had leather, but it was the sedan that had horsepower. And it was like attainable.
You talked about it so much.
I really did.
And I didn't see it.
Never owned one.
I've never been a nutcase.
And I love the 900 top Saab turbos in the late 80s.
9,000?
Yep. No, 900 I think was the turbo. And then there was 9,000.
Saab 900. It's a real car.
Yeah.
Okay. I stand corrected in public.
It was the 900 turbo. But yeah, it all started. I think cars are the shit. I think it's the greatest industry to work in. I mean, from wheel guys to dent guys to all the part suppliers to the windshield to detailing and ceramic coating and the wraps now. Every aspect of the car business is just phenomenal. And then you go on into the car business digitally for websites, photography, studios, chat with car chat. I mean, just gotta love the industry.
How about when you were selling cars? I mean, you've been in a lot of businesses since. Do you bring forward? I mean, was that any education for you?
Oh, without a doubt. Any salesperson needs to go sell cars first. Now, back in the day, you didn't sell a car, you didn't eat. I mean, there was a draw, but
minimum wage.
It was a couple $100. And I remember, and I probably could find it, I've literally got a 2-week check for like $1.50.
Right.
Because they take the draw back.
And you owed more to that than to your drug dealer at the time.
Yeah. You would make like a $2,000 check and get $1.50 back because they had taken all the draw because you didn't sell anything because you were preoccupied doing whatever the hell you were doing.
Right.
But that truly made me who I was. The desire was there, but now the car business gave me the hunger. So when you did work in the car business, you made money.
You know, Jay, I always said that everybody, when they get out of school, should go to Europe for 1 or 2 or 3 months, see the world a little, right? And needs to sell cars for a year.
Absolutely.
I think you learn more about the human condition telling people what their trade-in is worth than having to nurse them through that pain.
Correct. You just got your head ripped off. You owe $5,000 more than it's worth. And now I got to bury that equity into your car and add to it. It's brutal.
Right. But there's a lot of life skills in there. And it's funny, the guys I've talked to already on these shows or talked to about going on the show that are highly successful, interesting people. You know, we talked about Billy. I hear if they've sold cars, I hear over and over again, everything that I was able to pull everything forward from my car selling experience in my industry.
In the same respect too, though, back when we were selling cars, 1% of the people lasted a year.
Right. There's a little bit of turnover.
There was a lot of turnover because you either had to sell or you starved. And
you had to love
that. That made me who I am. And every day, even though I could probably pay my bills for a solid 6 months, I still get up and think I'm broke and it's time to go to work.
No, you've never acted comfortable.
No, I think if you're comfortable, you're in trouble.
So where have you been? What countries, states?
Countries.
You've been everywhere.
Desert Storm, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Northern Iraq, Spain, Northern Africa, and then with 360 booth, 30, 40 days and 5 trips to New Zealand. Greatest place ever. Put it on the bucket list. Australia is great, but it's very similar to Walt Disney World or Orlando. It's very condensed and beautiful in a small area, and then 3 miles out, you're in pasture. In Australia, you're out in the outback. Very cool experience. Guam, Hawaii, Canada, Vancouver's beautiful. Anchorage, Alaska, we have a studio. That was amazing. You'd hold up your cell phone and you'd throw away the picture because you just couldn't get the scale of Alaska. You just can't do it. God bless you when you shoot a photo. It looks great in Alaska. So to date, today, this year during COVID and since the January of last year, I've traveled 6.5 times around the earth in airline miles. I've got 900 cities. From May, I got 141 flights and love every minute of it.
You are amazing, you know, from an energy level, from adapting. And what I mean from adapting is I know that when you make a flight, you sometimes need to get up at 2 in the morning or 10 in the morning or time zones or going overseas.
2 days ago.
Okay.
I leave San Jose. Adapting. That was great because I was like, boy, I must have really done well because I would have jumped out of the plane. Hour late leaving, Dallas closes the airport, get to the tarmac, you're sitting there for an hour and 45 minutes. Get out of the plane, go to the rental car agency, you're there another 2 hours. My plane was supposed to land at 7:30. I left the airport in a rental at 15 minutes after midnight. So with no hairy-carry events.
But you love it. I mean, being on the road isn't as sexy.
No.
It's all cracked up to be for some people. But for you, it's amazing to me, and I don't want to put this wrong. Like, you don't necessarily need the next sale. Like, and I'm kind of the same. I come to work every day, like my lights are going to go out if I don't sell something.
Right.
And I think you do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In the way that you travel. But you put yourself into these situations that are uncomfortable and you adapt, and you're still socially posting for your business and personally, and it's upbeat messages and it's positive and it's business.
Now, borderline's a little crazy. So I'll fly to New Zealand on a one-way ticket.
Okay.
Like, who does that? My wife says, where are you staying? I'll find a place when I land. You can't book travel and hope that that schedule goes. It's way too stressful. It's far less stressful, a little more costly to book as you travel through. So when I start my week, I'll make my appointments and then I'll just book tickets an hour before the plane leaves. So
oh my God.
You couldn't take an average person and ride shotgun with me because you would be into some type of a panic shingles attack within about 6 hours.
But is it more costly or is it cheaper to book an hour before?
I would say 75% of the time with COVID, extremely cheap.
Right.
Because now they just need to fill a seat.
Right.
Like one of my guys are going to Vancouver Monday. It's $129.
Right. Nuts.
To Vancouver from Tampa. It's not
Right.
direct. It's one stop. But, I was just telling my wife, I got home, I was tired. And I said, boy, if the traveling doesn't humble you, because right now during COVID, you go to California, the restaurants are angry. They literally made them take all the furniture out of the restaurant, so you can't even sit down. Then you go to Florida, where you're wearing masks inside, but everything is open and we're going to town. I'll sit at a restaurant in Dallas and I don't want to wait for a seat, so I sit at the bar and I'm elbow to elbow with somebody else. That experience of being able to do those things, like I was in Dallas yesterday, it was 39 degrees and rainy. I took a picture of the dash on the highway, and then I took one here in Tampa 3 hours later, and it's 84 and sunny. It's very humbling to do that. I call it time traveling.
Right.
I'm not going to have anybody beat me either, where the others are doing Zoom calls and hoping for the best. My ass is in the seat making shit happen. And it's not always a winner. It is not always a winner.
So you travel the way you travel. You've done enough airline miles to do 3.5 times around the earth already.
Who's counting? 6.5.
Excuse me, 6.5. This year. Do you and your wife ever want to take a vacation? Does that ever come up?
So early days, well, we didn't do vacations for 10 years starting a business. And then I really love Laguna, as you can tell, but we would rent a little house for 10 days prior to season. So like 10 days for $3,000 versus $8,000 a week.
Mm-hmm.
In June. We'd go to Laguna but now we have an elderly dog. We now have 360 booth. She'll do 14 hours a day, 6-7 days a week, just trying to keep up with the taxes, the influx of employees out of AutoExact. My team in 360 booth is phenomenal. I get to pick from AutoExact for the guys. Vacation. No, we have no desire to go to Mexico or to the beaches. I think we're all in the Clearwater, Tampa Bay area at the poor man's Bahamas. So why go to the Bahamas? I would like to take her to Laguna and go back to a house again. I would like to take her up to Lake Tahoe. I was there during COVID. I mean, go to Lake Tahoe. It's gorgeous. We have a 19-year-old dog, deaf. It's her baby, our baby, but she... so right now you can't fly. So it's been 2 years since she's flown.
Now, how about your own bucket list? I mean, God forbid, you mentioned this aneurysm.
Right.
So you're diagnosed with this aneurysm. There's nothing you can do.
Nothing. You
just hope it doesn't
scan 6 months to a year. You hope it doesn't grow. You try to eat right, stay away from sugars. You basically, and after diagnosed, I just it starts to play with your head.
Sure.
That you're a ticking time bomb. So I went up to Cleveland Clinic, scheduled an appointment. Cleveland Clinic's great. I felt like a VIP guest there, but it cost me dearly for going out of circuit of your insurance.
Yeah, right.
Whew.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, you do know. Stay healthy and don't hold your breath and lift something heavy is basically what they say.
But changing your diet impacts the possibility of this thing?
No, nothing's going to grow. It'll only make it worse. So you can't like shrink it.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's there. Like COVID, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to wash my hands, put my mask on, and do everything possible not to get sick. Not because of the aneurysm, because I don't want to be sick.
Right.
So you live your life and you go on. I can't live in a closet.
But it seems like you're doing everything you want to do. Is it possible that you could have a bucket list? Is there anything you want to do you haven't done?
You know, it's crazy. I never really, I try to see as much as I can when I travel. My last time to Australia, I decided, well, shit, I'm going to do something. So I hit Great White, and I actually found one of two places in the world, South Australia, Lincoln, Port Lincoln. You board a boat at 6 a.m. It's a little fishing village, surf village in South Australia. You board a boat and you go out through a pass where you get 2 hours of 10-foot waves. But when you get out to the grounds, there's seals clinging for dear life and great whites. They drop a cage off the back of the boat. And on a ventilator, you jump into like 47-degree water and you see great whites. And that was not necessarily a bucket list. I never even thought that was humanly possible. It was a National Geographic's thing.
Right.
And when you first see it and you're in the cage, fright isn't there. It wasn't there for me. It was like, I'm seeing Bigfoot because you only see that on TV, but boy, incredible. Wasn't a bucket list. I don't really have a bucket list. I really, I saw my first wife die of melanoma cancer. So you can't live with regrets. So I try to live. Now, bucket lists for me is not a 100-foot yacht or a private plane or things like that. But it's definitely to, do what you can to have this experience called life.
Well, Jay, I think we might be at an hour.
Oh, we're way past.
And I know you're at your limit at an hour. The reason I wanted to have you, first of all, I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate you're in town just a few days and you came out to the Jeff Stern studios.
Absolutely.
Took your time. New Year's.
I thought it was a Saturday. It's a Friday. So
New Year's Day, by the way.
Right.
And the reason I wanted to have you on here, the value I wanted to give to the listener, whether they're in the car business or not in the car business, is you weren't a particularly phenomenal student. You went into the military trying to give yourself a little discipline.
Right.
You've got your demons, like a lot of us do.
If you don't have one, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, whatever. You were a lowly car salesman.
Lonely.
You tried a few entrepreneurial
Had to.
things.
Had to.
And, you deserve all of your success with your 600 or 700, whatever you have, car dealers that you're taking pictures
Depends
for.
upon the hour of the day.
Yeah, I understand. They come and go. I understand. How many staff do you have?
I think there's just over 50 or 60 right now. Marcus runs it. So unless there's issues, I watch everybody's emails. It runs pretty smooth with Marcus. He's phenomenal.
Now, Marcus, you're not here to defend yourself, so I'll just say it. I showed you how to take a picture of a car under the tree without the glare on it. There's nothing you can do. I'll make that a promo clip. We'll just pull that out for 30 seconds. That'll be Marcus's clip. But I appreciate it. I hope that the listener or the viewer got a little inspiration about what can be done by anybody. I mean, I think statistically, I don't take anything away from you.
Right.
But I think if you look back on yourself statistically,
1%.
You weren't going to do what you did.
No.
All right.
This has been Jeff Stern's Connected Through Cars.